what record at this point would be a disappointment? John, let's start with you. Let's keep the backdrop in mind that last year was a huge surprise, right? And things broke Tennessee's way, with the exception of Jeremy Banks acting like a goofball before the South Carolina game. Everything seemed to go Tennessee's way. Nobody expected Tennessee to beat Alabama and win 10 games in 2022. So, what record, just record alone, not how it happens, not a vast number of injuries, freak plays, whatever, but what record would be deemed a disappointment, a regular season record?
I think it depends on the fan, but I think based on the emails I've received, fans aren't real happy right now coming off a loss to Alabama. I think 8-4 would be considered a disappointment. I think it's kind of 9-3 would be a good season. 8-4 wouldn't be, and maybe some people would say, well, 8-4 is still better than the first season. But I just think the nature of the losses, you're losing to Florida and Alabama. A lot of fans look at these seasons as Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. Those are traditional rivals ever since the league went to divisional play in 1992. And if you don't beat any one of those teams, uh, fans hold that against Tennessee. So, yeah, I would say 8-4 would be disappointing to most fans.
Okay, I would say 8-4 is acceptable. 7 would be disappointing. Caleb, your thoughts?
I would say 8-4 is slightly underachieving, but not disappointing and not cause for concern or worry. 7 is. 7-5 is. I think 8-4 would largely be like, and John, I brought this up yesterday. It would largely be like the '94 Tennessee team. That was Fulmer's second year as a full-time head coach. You thought they could actually take a step up from the '93 team. I mean, I wasn't there. Y'all were. I don't know if y'all thought that the '94 team would be better than the '93 team because it was Fulmer's second year and he was still a hot commodity as a coaching prospect. But they took a step back.
I'm not as old as John. Hold on, I wasn't there yet.
Dave, you were at least 20.
Well, yeah, but I was more interested in the Strip than I was Neyland Stadium at the time.
I don't think Dave wants to join my generation. Yeah, I remember the '94 season, but things went awry in that season. Jerry Colquitt, Tennessee's quarterback, who knew the system very well, was a talented quarterback, suffered a season-ending injury on the seventh play of the game. Tennessee was playing at UCLA in Pasadena. And then it became a juggling act with quarterbacks. Eventually, Peyton Manning took over. Tennessee finished strong. But that team had a good offensive line, had some good running backs. I think that season would have turned out a game better, at least, if Jerry Colquitt had never been hurt and he'd quarterback the entire season. So that was a factor in it. And when I say that I think a lot of fans would say 8-4 for this team would be disappointing, I'm not. That's really not a criticism. You said 7-5 would be a cause to worry. I guess that's kind of how I look at it. This to me doesn't affect my faith in Josh Heupel as to what he can do with the program just because he would win 8-4. I mean, if he goes 8-4 and wins a bowl game, he'd match the best season Tennessee's ever had, other than his 11-2 season last year, since things went south way back in 2008.
John, part of the factor, or part of what we have to look at is the SEC is, I believe, down as a whole, but its floor is a little bit higher. The Missouris of the world are a little bit better. So the ceiling's not as high, other than Georgia, as far as comparing it to last year, but the floor is higher. So there could be an upset lurking out there. I think Missouri would be the program you would look to that would be most apt, because I would say Eli Drinkwitz would certainly like to lay some points on the Vols after last year.
Yeah, maybe about 66. Yeah, I don't know if I agree with you on the floor, because you still got Vanderbilt down there, and I don't know that Vanderbilt's any better than it usually is. South Carolina is an awful team. Arkansas has lost 6 straight and is really bad. Auburn and Mississippi State be a slight notch above those teams, but that's 5 teams that I don't think are very good teams and are pretty limited. Yeah, Missouri is better than usual. That's a factor. So, and that may be how some fans look at this too, because the losses to Florida and Alabama, that's not a great Florida team. I still think this Florida team could lose a lot more games when I look at that schedule. And even Alabama, this is not a typical Alabama team. It doesn't have the offensive firepower of so many of its teams in recent years. So I think fans look at it like that and say, well, we were good enough to beat those teams, where in some years Tennessee couldn't hang with Alabama.
No, true. And that's a very good point. John, I think about recruiting because I did that for so long. As far as recruiting, I don't see a big difference between 8 and 9, how it affects your program. For some reason, though, 7 and 8 seems like a big difference to go to a prospect and say 110 in 2022, 17 this year. That just, I don't know. That just sounds way different to me.
Well, what you do in that case, Dave, you just open up the checkbook, pocketbook a little bit more, and enhance those NIL deals, and they really won't care if it was 7 or 8. If they're going to be rich out of it, they can live with that, I think.
Yeah.
You got to admit, I mean, 2 things are different now. When you talk about recruiting, it's NIL and the transfer portal. That looms larger than recruiting does.
I'll tell you though, John, I'm about to take a stance that the transfer portal is the most overhyped thing in the history of college football. Because other than, let's say, a Lincoln Riley who takes a Caleb Williams, okay, to USC, other than those guys, you're basically getting cast-offs. You're getting
Hendon Hooker.
Well, no, that would be an exception. But look at who Tennessee got this year. What other players across the nation or in the SEC are having major impacts when you compare them to the number of transfers there have been? So what's your hit rate? I think it's 1 in 5. Whereas a recruit, I typically said the good recruits, you're going to hit 50%. And that's basically where you are. But I don't see the transfer portal being as impactful as I thought it was just a few months ago.
Oh, I mean, look at Ole Miss. Where would Ole Miss be without the transfer portal?
Well, yeah, that's absolutely true.
There's partially a talent evaluation process in this. And look, we're talking about how much blame does Heupel get. I think Josh Heupel has an issue that he has to prove to the rest of the nation about his ability to evaluate talent, because it hasn't proven itself to be good right now. I mean, he was the one, John, and you know this, and Dave, I'm sure you know this too. Heupel had 4 quarterbacks on the roster when he took over Tennessee, including Hendon Hooker. He went out and got Joe Milton himself. How did he not see that Joe Milton wasn't a fit for this offense? He really wanted Joe Milton when he was the offensive coordinator at Missouri in 2017. He recruited him heavily and tried to get him there. Then he went out and signed him. And we know now at this point, there was no real open competition in that fall camp. Joe Milton was the starter, was as sure of a bet to start as Brent Schaefer was at Ole Miss in 2006. Even though Hendon Hooker was better. And to me, that's still a huge knock on Josh Heupel, that he went into fall camp saying, I'm going to start Joe Milton, and I don't care that Hendon Hooker outperforms him. I think he dismissed Kaidon Salter over a petty weed charge because he wanted to make room for Joe Milton.
A petty weed.
I like that, Caleb.
It was less than a gram.
Yeah, I don't even know what that means. Weed. That should be a legal term.
I think he wanted every excuse to make Joe Milton the starter. And now we're seeing it here. He missed on Andre Carrick, who he tried to get out of Texas, who is just not good. I don't think it's a lack of effort. I just don't think it's good. He missed on Dante Thornton, who I think could be good, but I think Dante Thornton, maybe he's doing weed or something. I don't know, but he plays like it. He plays like it. That's all I'm going to say, because he doesn't seem like he cares when he's in the game. And so he missed on 2 Power 5 transfers. And then, I mean, look, we talk about his recruiting to shore up the offensive line. One of the reasons there's not a lot of depth on the line this year, Josh Heupel has missed on a lot of linemen he signed. You know, there's Addison Nichols, Mo Clipper, Masai Reddick. These are all Heupel signees. Where are they? Why can't they see the field?
Are we saying that Jeremy Pruitt is a better talent evaluator than Josh Heupel?
Yes.
Woo, strongest comment.
Yeah, that would be scary, wouldn't it?
Be terrifying for Tennessee fans.
No,
Scary doesn't begin to cover it.
I think
It's
Jeremy Pruitt
Halloween.
I disagree. I think Jeremy Pruitt is actually one of the better talent evaluators. I just don't think he knows how to utilize his talent. But I mean, I think Jeremy Pruitt, I actually think he'd make a good NFL GM. I know that's crazy, but
It is.
if you had somebody break down the math for him saying this is what you can and can't afford, because I don't think he'd be good at the math part of it with the contracts, but I think he can scout the talent well.
Yep. This according to Travis. Go ahead, John.
Well, he needs a good babysitter to help him along with those talent evaluations.
Jeremy Pruitt is a better evaluator, 100%. Travis says. Now, in all fairness, a little pushback on my comment earlier. Keenan Peely, had he not gotten hurt, would have been a contributor. Gabe Judy Lawley has been a contributor. So it's not like Tennessee completely crapped out at the transfer portal. Those are pretty good players. Portions of
those
the program.
BYU kids always play hard, though. You got to trust. You always trust BYU transfers.
Oh, no, I think it's and in Peely's case, I think it's Samoan guys. I mean, I think if you could field a team of just Samoans, you'd win a championship almost every year. Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Enjoy life better when you see better. Local vision service for LASIK, cataract surgery, and your annual examination. ccteyes.com. ccteyes.com. John, you gave me a weird look on the Samoan comment.
Yeah, I didn't think we should venture into ethnic discussions. Probably stay away from that.
No, I've discussed this with Greg Biggins, who is part Samoan for 24/7. I mean, they play hard.
No, I'm kidding. They do. I mean, their culture kind of they're depicted as really good team guys, hard workers, good work ethic. So yeah, I'm still trying to think through Caleb's thoughts on Jeremy Pruitt. I know you don't like to have a lot of rules and too much structure, but I think bringing up Jeremy Pruitt's name in a positive way is kind of risky for your advertisers. Maybe not, but just a thought.
He found Hendon Hooker, and he found Jalen Hyatt, and he found Cedric Tillman when Cedric Tillman was a 2-star in Nevada.
Yeah.
Like nobody, he was a 2-star. Yeah, he was a 2-star on Rivals. I think he was a 3-star on 247, but a 2-star on Rivals playing in Nevada. Nobody noticed him. Jeremy Pruitt takes over in 2018. Tillman is one of his first offers. He goes out and he immediately offers Tillman. That's scouting right there. You got to give him some credit on that.
John, I thought if you just suited up, you got 3 stars.
In most cases, but maybe he forgot something like a helmet or that kind of thing.
Yeah, he was a 3-star, and he showed up to the championship game without a helmet.
Yeah, I'm ready, Coach. Put
Thurman
me in.
Thomas style. Does anybody remember that from the Super Bowl?
I was at that Super Bowl.
Oh man, that's
great.
Also, he also found Bryce Thompson and Alante Taylor, and specifically went after them to play cornerback when a lot of people wanted them to play receiver on the recruiting trail.
Who on the message board thinks that Caleb wants to go back and hire Jeremy Pruitt?
He is a great talent evaluator. That does not mean he's a good coach.
Yeah. Well,
why did he go 3-7, Caleb, in his last year?
Because Josh Heupel went 11-2 with a lot of those same players. He went 3-7 because he can't coach. He's not a good actual on the field coach. I mean,
we agree on that.
Yeah, and I mean, this is kind of, and also, again, Jeremy Pruitt didn't have the Jimmies and Joes that were better than Alabama or Georgia. And if you're going to win on the field with talent, you have to find the guys that are better. What he did was he found players that were overlooked because Tennessee couldn't recruit at that level, that were good enough with the right coaching to beat those schools, not Georgia, because Heupel hasn't done that. And so I think that's where we're at with Jeremy Pruitt when we're talking about him. He found guys that, with the right coach and the right system, they could be good. The problem was Jeremy Pruitt didn't know how to put them in the right system.
Yeah, and Jeremy Pruitt also, John, was a little bit insensitive to peanut allergies because he stuffed cash in Chick-fil-A bags. They use peanut oil, which reminds me of the time you and I went with a salesperson and met with an assistant manager at a sporting goods store, and he had a peanut allergy. And I encouraged him to have some Chick-fil-A because he had the EpiPen on him. So why not give it a shot and see what happens? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, you showed you were more of a risk taker than he was, but it's easy to, take risk when it involves other people's health.
Right. And he said,
Yeah.
well, I could die. And I said, but you probably won't.
Yeah, play the odds. And just think how much you could gain.
John and I met with the assistant manager. He goes, sounds good to me. And I don't think he had any input whatsoever.